you are. All of you. Forgive me, for I have availed you nothing. Soon, I will be consumed by them, by the dark. I beg of the spread of the abyss. It must be stopped.
Hey there, and I hope you're well. I'm Jake the Ashen Hollow, and in this video we'll be talking about Farron's Undead Legion. But first, if you enjoy Dark Souls lore, be sure to click on the subscribe button, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter if you enjoy unfunny tweets and sneak peeks. In order to tell you about Farron's Legion, we need to go all the way back to the beginning, back to Knight Artorias. Of course, if you know anything about Dark Souls, then you've heard the tales of brave Artorias, the Abyss Walker, the hero who fought and traversed the Abyss to save Oolacile and subsequently the world. But it wasn't really that simple, and it wasn't really Artorias. It was in fact us, or the chosen undead who accomplished the great deeds, but it was Artorias' name that would forerun these tales. For good reason though, the world needed the name and the face of a hero. The world needed an example. And that example would be the very foundation that Farron's Legion was built upon. Now, Artorias didn't just become the Abyss Walker through acts of grandeur. No, his ability to freely traverse the Abyss was bought with a price. The Covenant of Artorias reads, "This ring symbolizes Knight Artorias' covenant with the beasts of the Abyss. Its wearer, like Artorias himself, can traverse the Abyss." So it was a pact that was made with the beasts of the Abyss that allowed Artorias to walk it. Now, I've often pondered on who these beasts of the Abyss were. The Abyss has been around for a long time, and I never thought it was the tainted beasts of the Abyss that made a pact with Artorias, the one dude in the world slaughtering their kind. I don't think it makes sense for them to give their enemy the ability to come into their home and whip their ass. Then I thought, maybe it was Koth. He dwells in the Abyss and is always up to his primordial serpent manipulative ways. He could have given Artorias this ability, but that still didn't quite add up to me, because again, Artorias was constantly hunting down Koth's dark wraiths and killing them. And sure, maybe he knew that eventually Artorias would succumb to the Abyss and wanted to streamline the process. It is a possibility, I suppose, but not every creature or beast we see in the Abyss was evil or corrupted. In fact, we even see a good friend of Artorias is there, and they even lead us to the stranded Sif. The Cat Covenant ring reads, "Ring granted to those bound by the Forest Hunter Covenant. The white cat Alvina speaks a human tongue and has lived since the early Age of Fire. Alvina was a trusted friend of Knight Artorias and the Great Wolf Sif." Now, there isn't a specific requirement known that makes a creature or beast of the Abyss, but I imagine being able to be in the Abyss is likely a prerequisite. So wouldn't it make more sense that Artorias' covenant was built upon a pact made with a trusted friend as opposed to his enemies? Now, this seems like a rabbit trail of sorts, but Alvina's Forest Hunter Covenant is important because it, as well, shares the same principles as Farron's Legion. The Forest Hunters protect Artorias' grave and the surrounding forest graves from intruders. Alvina even claims that those in the Covenant must heed the Golden Rule, that the clan is family and to your kinsmen you must forever remain loyal. And so when the forest and the resting spots of its heroes are threatened, those in the Forest Hunters clan are summoned to defend it. The Watchdogs of Farron sigil reads, "Ancient medallion depicting the crest of a wolf. Symbolizes the pact with the old wolf of Farron. The Watchdogs ensure that the warriors sleep in serenity by taking the form of loyal spirits and hunting down those who would trespass the woods of Farron." The parallels are quite apparent, and it's certainly more interesting while entertaining the idea that Alvina granted Artorias the ability to walk the Abyss, which means Alvina laid the foundation for everything that Farron's Legion is. Also, consider this. While the item description describes Alvina as a white cat, we can see she's clearly more of a gray-colored or iron-colored. Which is fun because the name Farron is a name of Anglo-Saxon origin and came from the given name Fairmont. The surname Farron originally derived from the Old French word ferrant, which meant iron gray. But do with that random factoid what you will. It's mostly common knowledge now that Darkroot Garden and Basin in Dark Souls 1 are the remains of ancient Oolacile. I won't delve into it too deeply here, but if you're not already convinced, see the architecture, map design, and the stone guardians to help get you there. Now, consider the idea that even the area of Farron's Keep is built upon ancient Oolacile / Darkroot Garden. I again won't go over those in detail here. I actually already have a video about that one of my first videos I did actually, and I'll put a link to it in the description for those interested in checking it out. But what's most interesting about the idea is that everything has taken place on these grounds. From Artorias' grave to the forest hunters protecting the land and graves to the watchdogs of Farron protecting the same land and the same graves, it's like we were watching an idea that continued to grow and shape essentially what was the legend of Artorias. People often assume that Farron's Legion simply consisted of the Abyss Watchers, but that's not the case. It was actually quite a large entity of people. Though, to be fair, the Abyss Watchers were easily their most formidable warriors and those most connected with the blood that connected them all and likely the face of the Legion. The soul of the blood of the wolf, which is dropped by the Abyss Watchers, reads, "Soul of the blood of the wolf. The blood was spread amongst the Abyss Watchers and their souls are one with the soul of the Wolf Blood Master." Now, this almost portrays the Abyss Watchers as some sort of hive-minded group, but that's a completely different topic for a completely different day. But they bore the legacy with the Wolf Blood Master, and not only share this bond in blood, but share its soul. You already are likely thinking that Artorias is the Wolf Master, and you'd be correct, but let's go ahead and confirm it anyway. The Wolf Knight's greatsword, transposed from the soul of the blood of the wolf, reads, "Greatsword of a knight tainted by the dark of the abyss and master of the wolf's blood of Farron. The Wolf Knight was the first Abyss Watcher, and his sword is more punishing against creations of the Abyss." The sword quite obviously belongs to Artorias, but for the sake of clarity, we'll also read the description for Artorias' armor, which is called the Wolf Knight set in Dark Souls 3, as it seems Wolf Knight is Artorias' new moniker. What's also interesting is that you can only buy this armor set in the Untended Graves after you've defeated the Abyss Watchers. I don't think there's any secret meaning to this, but the Darkened Fire link is, I guess, symbolic of the Dark of the Abyss. Anyway, the Wolf Knight helm reads, "Helm of a knight tainted by the dark of the abyss. The twilight blue tassel is damp and will remain ever so. A vanquished knight left behind only wolf's blood and a duty of legacy. The Undead Legion of Farron was formed to bear his torch, and the armor of these Abyss Watchers suggests their own eventual end." So, clearly the Wolf Master is Artorias, but what of the wolf's blood he left behind? Obviously, he wasn't a wolf, but he did have his companion Sif the Great Grey Wolf at his side at all times. And as it so happens, Sif was the only thing Artorias actually left behind. Artorias' shield, the Cleansing Great Shield, reads, "The steel great shield used by the knight who succumbed to the Abyss. Artorias, deeply scarred by the Abyss, used this to form a barrier to protect his compatriot Sif." So, Sif's blood is the blood that Artorias, the Wolf Master, left behind. And so while Farron's Legion was formed to continue Artorias' legacy, they built it upon Sif's blood. Now, that's not to say that they went and slaughtered the wolf for her blood, but it is canonical that the chosen undead slays Sif to retrieve the Covenant of Artorias. So it's likely that, especially considering how close to all of this Alvina and her forest hunters were, and not just close ideologically, but physically close, that they went to Sif's corpse and collected her blood. I'm not entirely sure how they used the blood to connect their souls, but I'm just gonna assume some sort of magic. That's all I got. As I said earlier though, Farron's Legion wasn't just comprised of the Abyss Watchers. No, it was a mass of people, likely from all different backgrounds and nations, brought together in a single cause. A majority were probably from Oolacile, given the location and the fact that they had front row seats to the destruction of their home, but the influence of Farron's Legion reached far and wide. In fact, they even boasted a powerful sorcerer. The Crystal Hail sorcery description reads, "Unique sorcery developed by extraordinary preacher twins known as the Crystal Sages. In a pact said to have been formed long ago, one of the sages allied with the Undead Legion in order to train the sorcerers of Farron. The Crystal Sages were even the successors of the Great Big Hat Logan, one of the most prolific sorcerers of all time, and one of these sages went on to tutor the Legion and their sorcerers to further strengthen their arsenal against the Abyss. The sage would develop and refine several sorceries specifically for the Legion and compile them into the Sage's Scroll, including the Farron Hail sorcery, which was initially created by the daughter of the leader of the Legion's acolytes, the Xanthus scholar Hazel. But still, the Legion wasn't just Abyss Watchers and Wizards. It boasted many warriors, including the people who would one day become the corrupted Grus we see within the Festering Woods. The Rotten Gru dagger reads, "Choice weapon of the blunt-horned Grus, descendants of the acolytes of Farron Keep. The rancid blade is drenched in rotten waste, making it acutely poisonous." Now, I'm not certain in what exact manner the Grus are corrupted. There could be an argument made that they look similar to the abyss-corrupted bloatheads we see in Oolacile, or perhaps they became corrupted when the wolf's blood dried up and the woods began to fester. But corrupted or not, it seems that not even their duty or loyalty has wavered, as they still defend their home and would seemingly still fight against the Abyss. And I think further evidence of this is the Gru barring the way to the Abyss Watchers against Dark Wraiths, who were Artorias' prey and mortal enemy, so I imagine there was no love lost between the two groups over the centuries. But that still isn't all of the people comprising of Farron's Legion. Their followers had followers, and by that I mean the Farron followers. The follower armor says, "Armor worn by the Farron followers. When a warrior of Farron fell to the Abyss, the tall, lean followers with their hollowed eyes quietly appeared in groups to hunt them down. Farron and its watchers fell to ruin, but the followers survived as a wandering pack of hollows. So dedicated was the fight against the Abyss, there was a unit comprised of those who would hunt down their own kin who had fallen to the Abyss. It is even said that their sword technique was honed to fight against men, implying that those who had yet to lose their humanity to the Abyss were the likeliest prey, which is pretty hardcore. But that's what the Legion was all about, a no-nonsense Abyss fighting force. Even Hawkwood, the Legion deserter, says this about the Legion.
"The Undead Legion of Farron is a caravan of undead, sworn by wolf's blood to contain the Abyss. The Legion will bury a kingdom at the first sign of exposure." Joyous bunch, really.
That might also be literal. Farron Keep is quite literally on top of the catacombs of Karthus. Now, catacombs are underground anyway, but there still isn't a trace of their kingdom above it. We know Wolnir was a mighty king, and he and his kingdom of Karthus eventually fell to the Abyss. This battle could have been what finally did Farron's Legion in. They knew their end was eventual and they'd be corrupted one day. So the two groups extinguished each other, it seems. But before the wolf's blood could dry completely, the Watchers used it as their mandate to serve as Lord and lit the first flame anew. It was then that the Farron followers, with no one left from the Legion to hunt down, lost their duty and were slowly drawn into the world of the Forlorn. But the Age of Fire would continue to dwindle, and one day the bells would toll. The Undead Legion would arise once more as Lords of Cinder, but they would forsake their duty to the Flame, for that is not and never was their true duty. Their mission, their life's work, is to fight and eradicate any signs of the Abyss, even if it meant each other. So here we find the Abyss Watchers locked within Farron's Keep, mindless undead, unfaltering in their duty. So one by one they slay each other, because just like Artorias, these Abyss-fighting heroes have nary a murmur of dark. And so locked in eternal battle to rid one another of their corruption, they fight unending.